Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of mob creation for Minetest with Blender and other softwares. So, if you watched part 1 of this 3-part series, which I really hope you did, you will know how we made this horrible excuse of a dog. It's like garbage. But you know what? Don't care. It was just for an example. So today we're going to be looking at how we put a texture on this guy, because right now this is really lame. I mean, let me turn these bones off real quick. Didn't want to do that. I want to change it to object mode and turn off X-ray. There we go. That little pug nose isn't actually a nose, that's actually a bone. But you can't tell that's supposed to be a dog. It could just as well be a pig, or... and you have a half dozen other small critters. So we're going to supposedly make this look like it's actually a dog. Our first step's going to be cutting him to pieces so we can get a flat map for all of the texture on here. Now you'll notice again I am using the keys over here so you can follow what I'm doing. So we're going to start by actually jumping over into the UV editing screen. And you know what, these keys are actually going to be in my way to turn off that option right there, which just makes backsides not show, because I dislike that. It gets too disorienting. And we are going to go ahead, select everything, hit U, and just do an unwrap and see what we get. And right now that's looking pretty confusing. So let's go ahead and create a new image. Whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to do this with a color grid. There we go. Okay. And then let's go ahead and change this to be not rendered. I thought I had my pie control still on. Turns out I don't. Change it to material. Nope. It's got to be texture mode we want. Here we go. Wow, I'm noticing this looks really horrible. 2 reasons. One, because I have a horrible camera setup. So let's jump back into default really quick. Hop into the top view with 7. Go over 2 lights here. Make a duplicate light, Shift D to duplicate. Change the entity to 0.5 so we just don't have anything that's super washed out and overpowering, which is rather unlikely that we would, but just to make sure that doesn't happen. Alright, so his backside is still kind of dark. Underside is completely black, but you know what, that's okay. Right now we are kind of noticing that we are reusing many parts of this texture many times over. For example, this top corner of his head uses the same texture as this chunk of his upper body here, which also uses the same chunk as the nose, which is also using the same portion right here. This mapping is a mess. If we wanted to paint on this, we'd never be able to. In fact, let's go to texture paint right now. You know what? Let's not, because I have to set up too much stuff for that. Let's go back to edit mode. Alright, so it looks like this whole thing's just a big giant mess, so let's try something else. Let's try Smart UV Project. Now this will try to intelligently break the mesh down for us. Now it's really hard to see here. There's an option here. Oh, I didn't realize I could just jump between that way. So here's what we're looking at right now, which is still not very easy to work with. And I honestly have no idea what I just did to get this dot selector, because I did not want that. I don't know what I did. I hit a key on the keyboard and it turned UV sculpt on. Yeah, I didn't want to do that. So here we go. It's still really messy. I can kind of think that these are like legs and these are feet or something maybe, but I don't really know. When you use Smart UV Project, it pretty much just ignores all of the UV unmapping you did. So let's go ahead and turn this back to our color grid. Okay, so let's start with the easiest piece, the body chunk. I'm going to have to move this again so we can change to edge selection. And we'll drop that right back down. So we want to imagine, if you will, or if you can, the dog's body being a cardboard box. And we are going to cut that cardboard box so we get a flat sheet of cardboard. So we do that by marking seams. So we're going to cut all the 4 corners, or edges, I guess, because the corners would actually be these points. And we're going to have to cut the bottom open too. So let's do those 3 sides. This one we don't need to cut because this will just fold outward. I'm sure that's not looking like folding action, but that's what it's meant to be. So we'll go ahead and mark a seam there as well. So now we kind of have this center top point here with everything hinging out from that. So if we go ahead and unwrap it again, we'll notice we now have a big chunk of doggy. Let's switch back to blank so we can see it a little easier. These, let me change to face. That is the dog's body. It's the top. That, I believe, is the head end. That's the butt end. That's one side, that's the other side, and that is the belly. Now the legs. The legs are these chunks that are kind of thrown underneath those chunks, which are parts of the head. And I have no idea what these parts are. Probably the tail's in there someplace. Let's go ahead and put this back onto color grid. And let's cut the tail open. Now we actually need to go to wireframe on this one. And if there is a face on the front, I'm going to have to move that again. You know what? I'm going to put it on the opposite corner here, because it won't be in my way there. Is there a face on the front of this tail? On the inside portion. I want face select. There is. I can delete that face, because you will never see it, because it is inside of the mesh. Same thing with the tops of all of the legs. And I should have really done that initially from the get-go. Those don't need to exist, because those faces will never be pulled out of the body to a point where you would see there's not a face on it. It'll save like 1 byte of data, and the performance gains will be so negligible you won't even notice, but why not? Okay, and now we want to cut the tail open. Same thing going here. It's a piece of cardboard and we need to cut it so it opens. So if we kind of cut a loop around on the bottom and then up one side, we will turn that into a flat portion. So we'll go ahead and mark the seam there, and we will unwrap this again. And we should now have a tail someplace, which is not showing in the editor there. Okay, I've got some tail pieces that aren't connected. Oh wait, they're all connected. There we go. So here's his tail. It's the very end of it, and then those are the sides. So let's see what we still have to do. The legs were unwrapped, because we marked those when we first started. And bear with me, my mouse decided it just wanted to fritz out. It's the beauty of a wireless mouse. Alright, we're back in business here. So only things left to do are the doggy's head. Now this is going to be a little more confusing just because of the form and design on it. So let's go ahead and just switch to solid mode here so you can kind of see what we're all working with. Now I want to keep the dog's face one chunk, and I would like everything to kind of wrap out from that. So if I cut along the edges there, I'll go ahead and mark those as a seam. And then, you know what, we'll do those, and we'll select that bottom face there, and we'll mark those. So we'll be folding the back of the head up, everything else will fold out, and it's all going to be hinging right on the face. But now we got a nose. How do we work with this nose? Because if this face is flat, this nose portion would have to be folded in, so this top edge here is down here. That's not going to work. So what we're going to have to do is cut the nose off of the dog. I know, it sounds super cruel. Trust me, it's not. He's done this a million times. Doesn't hurt a little bit. We're going to cut the nose. And then, let's unwrap it here real quick, just to see what that's looking like for us, because it's still going to be messed up. So here we have the nose mesh, still kind of all wonky. Like, that's really, really not good topology, because I would get this super tiny bit of space to try to put details on the tip of the nose, and then this really skewed side So if I drew a straight line on the texture, it would start off as a small line, but it would become a much wider line as it met with the rest of the head. Not something I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just use Control Plus to select the whole head. And we're going to look at what we got so far. So far, we're looking okay-ish. That nose is really a big problem, though. So, let's go ahead and do what we've done for the legs and the tail. And we are going to cut the edges like this. So the front of the nose is 1 point, and it'll turn into almost like a star. Well, not really a star. A plus sign, more or less, is what we will end up with here. Except I forgot to cut the head from the... Or cut the nose from the head. That's why this isn't working right. Let's try here. There we go! Okay, so we have a great big nose chunk right here. These are all legs. On some critters, you might be using the same texture for all legs, so you could just stack your legs all up like this. Squeeze, whoops, I don't know why that didn't go down. Squeeze a little more information into your image map. Yeah, I don't want to select that one little bit there. Not sure why that didn't select. Let's try using this mode. Yeah! So here we've got all the legs. Those can all use the same texture. This is the tail. The tail's texture will just be pretty basic. This is his body. His body needs to have a decent amount of space, I would think. We want to give him a detailed body. So we will move the head up. We're actually going to rotate it 90 degrees, hitting Control to constrain the rotation by 5-degree increments. So I make sure we get a nice flat rotation, so it's easier to work with when we move on to our image manipulation. I'm going to scale the body up to just about there and put it right there, I think. Now I may have to tweak that body size if the head doesn't clear. And the head just clears. The nose. How important is a dog's nose anyways? I mean, does it really need to have a lot of space for detail? Yeah, it probably does. Now, one thing you always want to be careful of is that you're not distorting your sizes too much. And there is an option. You know what? Let me move this back over onto the screen because it's in my way over here now. Minimize stretch, scroll wheel to set. Whoa, I'm adjusting some tweaking of the nose. It's not what I wanted to do though. Thought there was a way. Proportional editing, no. No, none of those. Okay, well maybe I'm just thinking things. Thought there was a way to see what your scale was on these. Now I guess one easy way, and this works just as well, is to go ahead and use your image grid here and switch back into textured mode and take a look at how these grid boxes all stack up next to each other. So for example, come on mouse, I know you had to work through a bunch of different interference here, but don't fail me now. So here we have the head and the shoulder, and those grid spaces are looking pretty close. You know, those squares are looking about the same size. That nose has got too much detail. You noticing how the nose is 3+ spaces wide and the whole head is 3 and a little bit? It's like I took the head and I made it smaller, but I didn't adjust the texture size accordingly. So let's go ahead and select, whoops, and just select the nose. Just want to tweak the nose here. Alright, and we're going to scale that a little smaller until we kinda-ish get these lines to match up in space somewhat. something. This is actually way more tricky than it looks. Let's rotate to the side. Let's see if we're kind of matching anything for the cubes there. Okay, let's make it a little bit larger. My scales don't seem to quite be the exact same from top to side. It's close enough. You're not going to really notice it too much. Let's check the legs out here. Do these legs look like they are appropriately scaled? I would say so, because here's what can happen if you're not careful. So I'll just grab all the legs here. If I make these legs really big, notice the amount of detail that those legs are getting versus the rest of the body. It would have a much crisper amount of detail, smaller pixels on it than the rest of the body, and it just looks off. So you always want to be careful to make sure that you're maintaining close to the right scale, like this tail. This tail is definitely too large. That tail is not quite what it should be. It's a little too large, a little bit. So let's scale that. Scale that which way? Smaller? Yes. Scale it smaller to make it larger. That looks about right. Alright, so we've got the scales kind of figured out to approximately where we want them to be. Let's go ahead and move some things around here, if necessary, which honestly in this case, completely unnecessary. But I'm thinking I don't really like how this chunk here is sitting. So I'm going to move that. And then I'm going to take the body and scoot it to this side. Then I'm going to grab all of these. Whoops. Throw them down here. Grab this. And rotate that around 180. There. Now it fits very nicely. It really doesn't matter too much. The only thing you want to watch out for is that your edges aren't sitting too close, because then you can get color bleed. And that's basically just where the edge actually ends up being between 2 pixels, and you get a little bit of both pixels, and you get this weird little chunk of color that shouldn't really exist, but for some reason does. And yeah, it'll drive you crazy. And for some reason I'm hitting Control minus, because I'm an idiot. Just trying to get these to line up a little more on point. That small degree of inaccuracy is not going to hurt, but it just looks nicer when they're super duper lined up. Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff. Let's export this image. So we're going to go ahead and export UV layout, and we're going to select our directory, select the name, which I will actually call it dog UV. You know, good naming conventions and everything. And we are going to export this at 1024 by 1024. Now these numbers you can change. I always recommend you keep them the same number, so it's still a square you're exporting, so as it will stretch your layouts. And we are just going to jump right into GImp and open that image I just exported up. Of course, it would open the open image dialog on the other screen. Let's see, where did I save that? I think that was saved in Blender. Minetest dog UV. Yay, here we have our Doggies UV. So we'll just zoom in on that once here, and I'm going to create a new layer right away. I always like to work on top of layers. Layers are your friend. Use them. Use them as much as you possibly can. It's going to save you a lot of trouble if you have to go back and make some edit, and you have to try and repaint things. Now, for the sake of this, we're just going to make... I mean, it's already an ugly dog, so how much worse could I possibly make it by just doing an ugly paint job? You can use the paintbrush, and in GImp you can do shift to do straight lines. And you know what? I just realized I am painting on the wrong layer, so let's undo that and select the empty layer and paint on that instead. Now unless I'm making sure I go outside of these lines, because this image will get scaled down. And when that happens, I want to make sure that the necessary colors are still available in all the spots they need to be, so we don't get any of those color blurring fade things at the edge. This is a dog's body. I know, super impressive, right? So let's tweak the brown a little bit here. Let's give the dog some spots. Now I'm going to adjust the opacity so I can see where my seams are. So I'm going to kind of do a spot, something like that. And I'll do a spot, something like this, on his underbelly. Now, this location here needs to match with some location here and another location here that's going to match with that. So I'm just going to eyeball it. And yeah, call that good. And we will check it in 1 second once I get this filled. Ooh, my line didn't quite go far enough. There we go. There we go. Alright, so we got a couple spots for this poor dog. We're gonna go ahead and I guess we'll make his legs and tail right away too, because why not? Boom. Those are the legs. This is the tail. We're gonna give him spots on his legs or tail? Probably not. I'm just too lazy for that. We will export. And we don't want to export as dog UV, because that's the UV map. So we'll export as dog. And then we will hop back into Blender here. And we will go ahead and open an image. Open image. And we'll open dog. And voila. We have a dog with a transparent head because I didn't paint anything onto his head yet. And a spot on his backside. And a spot on his upper top side-ish area. Now I can't see anything on his butt because my lights aren't rotated in a fashion where it's visible. So we're going to go ahead and just grab one of these lights and rotate it so we get some light casted on his rear end. And there we're going to notice it does not match. Still can't see anything underneath this guy. So you know what, we're going to have to go ahead and rotate a light so it's pointing up. There we go. Alright, so that matched, but that obviously would because that was one line we drew. The section on the tail needs to be extended a little bit on both. So let's jump right back into GImp. Now, this doesn't have to be trial and error. You could do it a scientific way. Whoops, wrong color. And the scientific way, it's not scientific. That's a lie. You could do it the right way. I'm gonna use that instead. You could use it the right way, and you could count the number of pixels from this corner to wherever you're gonna make that line. Put a little marker there. Do the same thing here. Put a little marker there, and then do the same thing from this seam to that line. Right? Yeah, from this seam to wherever you're putting that spot, and then you would count it from this seam, this corner, to that spot, and then you just draw your connecting line. I'm too lazy to do that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So I'm just gonna tweak it. Now, nice little tip. Alt-R will reload your image, which didn't seem to have reloaded the mesh. I may have to tab into edit mode to get that to reflect. Okay, well that one's matching now. So now I just need to figure out which face this face is, which I must be on edge select. Yep. So that is this one. This point needs to go, no. I need to select this one. That point, which from hinging from the top, we're looking at this upside down. So this side here, that we didn't even touch because the dot was too far out. Let's correct that by putting the dot, boom, right there. Alright, we will re-export. Overwriting, yes, I want to overwrite. Alt-R to reload. There we just update. Close enough. It's off by probably about 2 pixels. I don't think you're going to notice it once I scale the image down. His legs are really plain right now. I should put something on them just to demonstrate how that works. So let's hop back in here. I'm going to go ahead and drop the opacity again so I can see the actual mesh locations here. I'm using the darker brush. Let me change my brush size down a little. It's about 10 here. Zoom in. And we will color the bottom of the foot. And we will give him like a little band. So it kind of looks like he has some dirty paws. And his tail, you know what? Let's kind of do... See, that's hard because I want to do like the tip of the tail. So let's do this. We'll go ahead and put a spot there. Control and Shift and GImp will constrain you to a straight line. And I will go ahead and paint this. Now I'm going to have a straight line going around his tail as a band. I don't know if I like that. I think there should be some variety to it. You know, what's that saying? Variety is the spice of life. I think that's how it goes. So we'll leave those two very endpoints alone, but I'll paint a little bump out going there. And then I'll switch back to the lighter color paint. And I'll kind of do a little divot right about there. Then we'll just pump that opacity back up. Those two edges will line up perfectly. And what else do we need to do? We need to do a face yet on this dog. Now that's going to be a trick. Because I'm not a dog person, and I really don't know what a dog face looks like. Oh, helps if we re-export. Gotta make sure we're doing that. Otherwise you won't see anything happening. Sure, we want to replace it. Export, please. Let's reload this image real quick. There, he's got like these little dirty paws now. His tail, it's kind of got that band going around. You can kind of see the little mark going in there. Can't really see anything on these sides because, well, yeah. Let's see this button. Here we go. I just killed all the lights, which makes it pretty much do a true to life representation, but you get absolutely no shading. So you can see the divots and stuff going around his tail there. His spot on the rear leg. Kind of odd that his spot wouldn't go onto his leg itself. Something you probably want to consider. Now, of course, I could always select this one leg and say, you know what, that leg needs to have a spot on it. And I could just drag this leg off and paint the same type of a thing, but give him a spot on the top of it and make it match up. I've got plenty of empty space where I can paint more data in, so it wouldn't be an issue. However, I'm lazy, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to now attempt to figure out what a dog's face looks like. Please don't kill me, dog lovers. I am not an animal person. Unless, of course, it's a kangaroo rat. I love kangaroo rats. Don't have any. If I ever get a pet, that will be what I get. So here again, we're just painting around the outline of the Doggies Head. Now, I'm going to go ahead and paint this. And now you might wonder, well, why wouldn't you just fill that inside space in? Why would you paint around it? Well, oddly enough, there's actually a somewhat good reason. By doing that, I know that that space is not represented on the object. So I should not put any detail in there. Basically, I'm just saving myself time, is what I'm doing, because you'll never see it on the mesh. We'll drop the opacity in so we can see what we're working with. Now, another option, instead of dropping the opacity on your master layer, assuming you have a lot of layers, which I normally would, but for something simple like this I didn't bother, you can always drop your UV map on top and adjust its opacity, and then just make sure you select on the lower layers and paint on that. The downside is you kind of get this whitish color. Now, when you export, you can export with 0 opacity and just have your black lines. It's always something you can do to experiment, see what works best for you. We are going to rotate this image, I think, because I can't paint eyeballs on a dog if it's sideways. It's just going to look miserable. You know, I'm going to go ahead and use the white here. I'm going to paint some white dots up at size 20. Like I said, don't kill me. This dog's going to look horrible. I am not an expert by any means. We're going to put one dot there. And we're going to put one dot here. Now, I put them like right on this seam line. These are unfortunately going to have a little touch of distortion on them, I think. Because these lines should really run perfectly vertical, up and down. Wait, what? No, they should run perfectly parallel, up and down, to these lines. They're not. Now, I could tweak that manually. Really should, but obviously I didn't. And we're going to give him black insides of his eyes. Do dogs really have white eyes with black insides? And you know, I'm painting this all on the wrong layer because I'm an idiot. Way to go me. Let's go ahead and undo that. Otherwise that's just going to end up confusing me. Okay, so we need the white brush again. And we were doing that at size 20. And we'll pop one there. And we'll pop one there. And then we'll go ahead and select black. Drop the brush to 8. I'm just scrolling with my mouse wheel inside of that size selector to change sizes. Alright, now, let's see. His eyes kind of look like they're looking off to the side. Probably not good, but it'll work. What do a dog's ears look like? I'm going to give this guy, he's going to have like floppy ears, if that's okay. So I'm kind of going to do, I don't know, something. Please tell me that doesn't look like this guy's been through a blender and out, because he's not supposed to. He's supposed to look like an adorable, cuddly dog. Oh man, this is horrible. Boom, boom. Okay, so he's got ears now. What else does a dog need? Well, his mouth and his giant, great big nose go onto the nose chunk. Would anything be on the top? I mean, technically his ears should kind of wrap over to the top, I suppose. So let's, let's not use the paintbrush. Let's use the pencil. Pencil will give you a hard pixeled edge. Paintbrush will give you a blurred edge. Find what works best for you. In my case, because I'm scaling this down further, I'm going to use a pixel brush right now. So that's kind of his ears, I guess. That's the back side of his head. I don't think it needs anything there. Where's his nose? Where is his nose? No, I'm really hoping that up on the head's up on the nose. I suppose I probably should have checked that. Well, in either case, we're going to go ahead and shoot a straight line across there. And we're going to hope-ish that's like the middle. And we're going to do that. Does that look like a dog's nose? Please tell me it somewhat-ish kinda does. And then we're going to go down to a 1 pixel brush. No, wait, you know what? We won't. We'll go to like a 4 pixel brush. And we're going to give him some whiskers. Is this what dog whiskers look like? I have no idea. That's supposed to be whiskers, okay? And maybe he'd have some whiskers here too. I don't know. I mean, whiskers are... Do dogs even have whiskers? I know cats do. I feel like dogs don't. Oh, well, he's got like some polka dots. I don't know. Maybe he went through a briar bush before we captured him to do this video. Before he volunteered, I mean. Before he volunteered. And then he should have some kind of a mouth, right? I mean, dogs have to eat too. But I have no idea what a dog mouth looks like. So we're just going to take the black brush here. And I guess we'll just do like a straight line going across. And that's going to be his mouth. Alright, so let's go ahead and re-rotate this sideways. So it's the right direction. Yeah. That is an ugly dog. Let's see what it looks like once we put it on the mesh though, because maybe it won't look so horrible there. Export as dog. Replace, please. Export, yes. Alright, now. Oh, no! I did his whole nose backwards! And the ears don't match up, but they actually don't look horrible. I'm really impressed. Those ears look okay-ish. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select the nose. Now, there is no right or wrong way to this, because I technically could go in and rotate everything I painted. But why bother when you can just rotate the UV mapping? -270. He's got his nose, he's got his whiskers, he's got his mouth. I feel like that top, the bridge. Does a dog have a bridge to his nose? I feel like there should be a bit of an arch going in there. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But you know what? I think that's gonna work. So let's go ahead and hop back into our default view here, and you know what? Let's save this right away because, well, you just never know when you'll have a bug pop up and then just kill something. And that's never fun. Like, whatever I just did there, I killed that light. I think I hit H and hit it accidentally. Of course, anybody watching this video could just jump back a few seconds and know exactly what I did, because the keys are all being recorded. Alright, let's hop to camera view, which is from his back end. I don't know why. There we go. We've got ourselves a little dog. He doesn't look too fierce. I blame that on his little button nose there. Go away, button nose. Here, a mean dog just ready to lunge at you. And there you have it. That is how you unwrap in texture. Video part 3 coming soon. And that's going to be exporting and then hooking it up with 10+1's mob API and getting it into the game and letting it do its business. Which, don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean like going potty, because that's not what this doc is going to do. I might make it, I don't know. I don't know if mobs can attack mobs. That'd be interesting. I should look into that. They probably can. But that is that. So thanks for watching, guys. Any questions, comments, concerns? Did I go too fast? Did I go too slow? Anything, feel free to leave a comment on the video or on my website on the page for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.